Okay, today I'm going to talk about something really exciting, at least it was for me and other people who love to sew. This sewing machine does buttonholes and buttons in an amazingly quick way, really easy, and it's made it possible to make lots of blouses. Today I'm going to talk about all of that and teach how easy it is to do it. Welcome to my channel. This is Get Sewing and Quilting Done. Of course, tools of the trade. We can't get by without them. Let's start with the 3A foot. You have to have it. It should come with every machine, but if you don't have it, if it's been damaged, something's gone wrong, you can't make buttonholes without it. We have the 18 foot. This is the older version. I would recommend getting it. You can get by without it, but why? It's such a wonderful foot. It's so useful. Why get by without it? And of course we have bottom line. That's my go-to thread, and I use it also for this. It's thin thread, but it's very useful because I am using cording for this. And I have So Sassy. You can use pearl cotton, but I really like the So Sassy. It's also by Superior, and it's very useful. I use it for a lot of other things, not just this. I do use fray block. There's other types of very light glue that you can use. If you do use this one, you have to get a thick block of paper or something to put it on so you can dab it with the stick. But I really recommend it. I do it before I cut the buttonholes open. And of course we have buttons. A beautiful, wonderful supply of great buttons are available. You're looking at the foot. It's got this little section above, and that's where we hook on the cording. A really good system. It works beautifully, and then it hooks on the bottom. I always like to take a good look at the foot. The top part about it is you see that little section that really moves, that red little section. It moves up and down, and it's for manual. We don't need it for what we're doing today. That middle section, there's a little hole, and it helps you place where you want it to place. There's a little red line, so where it should start. When you put it back on, you can see on the top, you need to thread it when you put it on. And there's several ways of dealing with that problem. I pick up the foot, and then I bring the needle through, and then I guide through the thread, and that seems to work the best for me. You're looking at the computer screen for the sewing machine, and I press on that icon that looks like it's for buttonholes. It's really great. And which buttonhole to use? Well, that icon that has the question mark is what I use. I press on it, and then I press on the buttonhole that I'm thinking of using. And you can see here it says find a medium weight fabrics, and then I press on 52, and also it's for lightweight fine fabrics, heirloom garments. I'm using fine weight fabric to do this, but it doesn't say it's for cording. So let's press on that icon again, the question mark, and you can see it says the standard buttonhole can be sewn either with or without a cord. That's really important. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to use 51. Of course, it still says it has all the other things on it that I want to use. So I'm going to press 51 and make sure it's highlighted. And you can see right away, it's going to tell you should have the 3A foot on, which we already have on. It has a little blinking icon that is for going backwards. And that's telling you need to press something if you're going to be doing a manual buttonhole, but we're not going to, so we can just disregard that. So I pressed on the I, and you have two different sections. One is 0.6, and it's talking about the width in between. We're using a standard button, so we don't need it. I hardly ever use that, but this one that's talking about length, this I use a lot, and has a little, it's talking about the size of the button going that way, not the width. So you want to press on that, and you're going to adjust the length. So you press on that, and out it comes, and you can see the circle with a button and an arrow on the placement. So you want to place that button on there, and it's going to make it bigger. And the bigger size is the outward part of the buttonhole. That's the actual threads, and the smaller size is 16.5 in this case, is the inside where you're actually going to be cutting. There it is. It is set up beautifully. It's going to work automatically. What you want to do is write down the things and or press that icon and make sure it's highlighted with the old-fashioned floppy disk. And that way, if you get interrupted in this, or if there's a power shortage, or who knows what can happen, you can go back to it. So because we want all the buttons to be the same. Now we are good to go. So this is the temporary piece. It's the fabric, facing and interfacing all together, and you can see where you place it. The reason why I'm showing to you this first, because it's hard to see after I get the threads in. This is the way it's going to be placed, and each time you place it on the same in the same place. Now I do a preliminary one, a demonstration one, and maybe that's a throwback. Maybe I don't have to do that anymore, but I still do it to make sure that it's working correctly. There you go. Now I'm going to place on these threads. Now it doesn't matter that the fabric or whatever you're going to be sewing on moves around, because you could reposition it afterwards, because these threads get locked into place. You're going to see, you wrap it around what I showed you at the beginning. You just wrap it around there, and it comes through to the front part of it, and it should work really nice and parallel. So you just hook it above. There you go. There's the first one and the second one, and they're going to stay in, and that gives you the advantage of being able to place the fabric and not messing up the cording at all. And it works amazingly well. Okay, this is what it looks like. You could see the parallel lines, and that's the way it should, because it sews over it and not through it. And the reason is you want to get rid of the loop in the back. You'll see that when we get to that stage. Now you can see I'm just going to put the fabric right inside, and look at how the cording stays beautifully in place. That's just what I want it to do. And we just place it, and then we step back and we let the sewing machine do its magic, and literally does its magic. See that button above? Now you can use the foot, but I prefer to use that button, that top button. On this machine it's green. It might be on all of them, and you have to press it for a few seconds for it to start. But you'll see, you just press it. I'm not doing anything else, and it sews. And it just goes through it just like that. I am so thrilled that it does this. And you can see right when it gets to the end, it will stop with it up. And there you go. Now I do knot it, but I don't know if you have to. I think it has a self knot, but I do knot it. And that means that on one side, it won't pull the thread. It will only pull on the other side. It only needs to pull on one side, but it basically knots it. Okay, so we get it back, and see that icon that is right there, the triangle and the little line? I press that, and it means it's telling the machine to start over again. Because I used the cut, the machine doesn't know. And I'm going to say that a few times. Every time you start a new buttonhole or put on a button, you want to make sure that that icon isn't highlighted. And if it is, you just press it, and it's telling the sewing machine that you want to start at the beginning of whatever you're doing. Now you can see I'm pulling. One side pulls and the other side doesn't, and there you go. You have pulled it. It looks amazing. Now usually I cut these off, but you can thread them underneath. When I cut them off, and it's for the blouse, I use a magnifying glass to make sure I get as close as possible. And usually what I do is I use the fray check beforehand, before I cut the buttonhole, but I just want to show you how I do it. And I let it dry. But in this case, because it's just a demonstration one, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I cut it. Now, I used to use a cutter especially for buttons or buttonholes, but now I've used a regular seam ripper and I start where I want to start, and I only go halfway through, about halfway through, it doesn't matter, but I don't go to the end, and then I turn it and I start on the other side and it meets up wherever I stopped. The reason why I use this system is I don't want to get to the end and actually cut through it. Then I demo the buttons. I make sure the buttons fit through beautifully. They do, and you can see how beautiful and how clean this is. Okay, now we're just going through really fast. I'm showing how quick how easy it is to do. Each one turns out beautifully. I use the same system, and of course, this is on a sped up video, so I don't really move as fast as that. Unfortunately, it would be really cool if I did have that superpower. All right, then you could see before I cut everything, I use the fray check and I let it dry. Let's take a look at the 18 foot. This is the older version. I hope to get the newer one. It holds on to the button a little better. This has a bar right there, and I use the screw on the right side to adjust it. That makes the button not as tight, so it's easier to go through the buttonhole. You could also take it off if you're using buttons just for decorative and you want them really tight onto the quilt or whatever you're putting the button onto. Now let's take a look at the computer screen. I really like that. You press the same icon and you scroll down and you find the little icon with the button on it. It's as easy as that. Then you set it up, and you can see right here I'm going to be using the shank when I turn it to do a few stitches. The reason why I'm doing that is I want to make sure while I'm going slow that it's the right width. I've never had it not be the right width, but Murphy's Law says the minute you don't do it, that's when you're going to have a problem. So what I do is I pick up the thread. I use tweezers to do that, and I could do it in the button or outside of the button. And then I make sure before I start stitching that I do a knot, and I make sure, see that icon? That is, I've showed it to you before. I press that and make sure that the machine knows that I want to start at the beginning. So this time I'm picking up the thread before I put in the button. It really doesn't matter. I just like to pick up the thread. I just want to show you how I do the whole thing from the beginning to the end after I've organized and made sure that the correct width is being used by the machine. And so it's just the same thing. You pick it up and it might be a little easier to pick up the thread if you don't have the button there, even if you are using the tweezers. So, and that way I can just hold on to it on the side. So let me just stick it in, and you can see the cut on my finger. Yes, I have one. I didn't do it while sewing. I actually did it while cooking in the kitchen. So let's be careful with our hands. They're really important. I lost quite a few days of getting things done in my studio and in the kitchen because of that. So I just go ahead and I'm doing it just like that, and I just press all the buttons like I showed you before, and it just magically works. There it is. And it stops magically. You could press the button and have it lock it, or you could just pull it because it is locked. You have to pull the blouse or the fabric towards you in order to pull it out, and then I just do each and every buttonhole and each and every button, and this is the way the finished product looks. I couldn't be happier. Okay, that's it. I hope that you try making some blouses or other things that have buttons and buttonholes, and do it without hesitation. It is so easy. It is so much fun now. If you like what you see, please subscribe, like it, and if you have a comment, I will try to get back to you. I don't know why, but I don't seem to get all the comments, but I will try to get back to any comment that comes through my way. See you. Have fun.